Hi, this is Andrew with ABT Plumbing, Electric, Heat, and Air. Once again with the show, You Got This. It's a show of DIY do's and don'ts. And I'm here with Rosalie Brown. And I forgot to start my timer, but I'm going to do that right now while we're talking. So what's going on with you, Rosalie?
Well, I don't know if you heard, but it's cold out. And it's cold out even if you live in the sunny parts of California. I've had to run the heater, I think 4 or 5 mornings in a row now. And so I feel like, maybe winter is arriving, which is kind of cool.
It came in with a vengeance here. I mean, I went for a bike ride on Saturday and I experienced rain, snow, sun, and cold all in an hour, you know?
I think I saw that on social media and I was like,
Yeah.
that's one thing that I do kind of miss about being up north is that you really can have a day like that where you just drop the elevation a little bit and then everything changes. So that's kind
Yeah.
of cool.
Yeah. It was interesting. I didn't see any rainbows, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean, I got pelted by that little grapple snow, the stuff that is almost hail, but it's not hail because it's not ice, it's snow crystals. Yeah. And we actually had the night before, we were at a friend's house up on top of Banner Mountain, and we were doing a social distance outdoor thing because that's all we can really do right now. And yeah, we got snowed on. Everybody had to kind of huddle underneath their big patio umbrella with the little fire pits going and stuff. It was kind of fun. It was very festive. But yeah,
Well,
it's
I
that
mean,
time of year.
that's winter in Nevada County, right? So you just
Yeah.
gotta, I mean, it's always interesting to see like how accurate the snowfall reports are because that's one thing that I remember. You'd watch the news and it would be like, okay, snow's gonna get to whatever elevation, and then I
Right.
was in that weird little bubble between town and like the top of Banner Mountain. And so I'd always have to wait and see like, okay, wait, are we going to get it? And like, you text me and you're at the time like living like 3 minutes away and you're like, we're
Yeah.
totally snowed in. And I was like, oh, we just have flakes, whatever.
Right.
So always interesting to see the different ecosystems within a very small area. That's kind of a cool little
It
place.
is cool, the little microclimates. Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean, we were talking about the other night where it was, because we lived on top of Banner Mountain at the lookout tower, like one door down from the lookout tower. And yeah, the kids would be all excited. Oh my gosh, it's snowing. It's a snow day. And we'd look, nope, it's raining in town. We got to go to school.
Yeah, I will
They were
say
always
that
bummed.
back in the day, back when in the before times when it was all about having the kids in the classroom. I remember so many times I was like, I'm gonna make that call for snow day for my house
Right.
because I was like, it's just not gonna be worth it by the time I get down to town. Yeah, town might be great, but it could take me 4 hours to get back home.
Yeah.
So more than once my child got independent study because I was like, nope, not gonna do it. So now
Not
snow
worth
days
risking
are,
our lives. Yeah.
yes, now snow days are very different. But
Yeah.
I think I read that we're recording this on Veterans Day, which this won't mean as much coming from me on Friday, but what a great day to honor and acknowledge everyone who served. This weekend, though, I believe, are you not supposed to get snow and rain like a storm? Is
It's
that
looking like, yeah, it's coming in on Friday. So yeah. Yeah. And yeah, my father was a vet. He's since passed, but Navy, he was kind of in two wars because he enlisted in, let's see, that would have been like 62. I think he got out. Or maybe 63. Anyway, he was at the tail end of the Korean War and at like just a couple days in the Vietnam War in the
That's
Navy.
wild. That's wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
my dad was a veteran of the Korean War, and then I have several people in my family and extended family that interesting. They all kind of went Navy, but my
Yeah.
dad and my uncle, actually a couple of my uncles were Army, and then another uncle I have a fairly large family when I remember them all.
Yeah.
One of my uncles was in Vietnam, and I remember as a kid, when we would go to family functions and, he's one of my favorite uncles. I was very fortunate in the uncle department. I had some great, they're still with us, but really loved my uncles and loved spending time with them. But I remember as a kid, I had to ask my parents, like, what was wrong with Uncle Bob because he was in Vietnam. And to this day, there's the blinking, a lot of interesting like blinking, and he has a lot of reactions to things that
Yeah.
as a child I didn't understand that that's something he'd take the
He-
rest of his life.
That's sad. That's rough.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's,
Yeah.
and he's lived a great life, and I'm so grateful that I have so many great, men and women in my life that are so brave and courageous. But as a kid, I just didn't. And so now I think that my children might have walked back from that generation and not understand the sacrifice as much because they haven't
Yeah.
seen it as much.
Yeah.
But I do think it's even though this will play a couple days later, I always feel a lot of pride and honor and just a lot of emotions on Veterans Day. There's so many people that have just done amazing things for this country.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. My grandfather was in World War One, lost a lung because of mustard gas. So yeah.
my grandfather was in World War One as well. And I always have to count back and think, okay, when, like, my grandfather died in the 90s and he was very
Wow.
old at the time.
Yeah.
And so, and I remember thinking like, wait, was it World War One or two? And I think when I do the math, because, everyone in that generation of my family is gone, I'm
Yeah.
pretty certain it was World War One. And, just as a kid, you hear your grandparents tell stories, and that's something that I'll treasure the rest of my life, is just
Yeah.
being able to listen to my grandfather talk about his view of the world and his experiences. And just the greatest generations really are the ones that are brave enough to share their stories with us. So anyway,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
whatever it's worth, I just am really grateful today, and we just honor all of them and hold them
Definitely.
close in our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah. Most of them unfortunately are gone. Um, yeah, it brings up something too for me, because like that's so my father's family came out to the West Coast because my grandfather was a diesel mechanic during World War II on the shipyards in San Francisco, and that's what led my father to join the Navy, because he moved out. They moved out from Nebraska when he was like 3, and my grandfather was working on ships, so he liked the idea of going on a ship and got me into sailing and got me in really with a love affair of the ocean. So yeah.
And
Um,
you do actually love the water, because let's just talk for 1 second about the cool artwork that I have seen, because I have a couple Andrew originals in my possession, and those were more earthy and textured, but which I'm all about the texture on a painting. Like, how cool is that?
yeah.
Uh, but you also did some cool artwork that included octopi, right?
Yeah, yeah. Cephalopods. I love cephalopods. I don't know why, but I've 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 had lots of experience with diving with them, and just kind of being around them and finding them in tide pools in the Bay Area, and they just fascinate me. So yeah, I did a series of cephalopod, octopus, and cuttlefish, and yeah, with oil pastel recently. Yeah,
Well,
it's
you
fun
do
stuff.
love the ocean. You do
I do
love the
love the
ocean.
ocean, and I'm feeling a need to do a nice snorkeling trip one of these days. We haven't done it in a while, so yeah, yeah.
Well,
But
nothing
so
like the present. Let's talk about where you've been and what you've been doing. You went to go do some didn't you go do some DIY across the
yeah,
Midwest?
so my wife and I bought. My son was going to school in St. Paul, and we kind of fell in love with the city, and we've both of us have wanted to spend some time in a city again, and we're both from the Bay Area, and I was born and raised in San Francisco. But unfortunately, San Francisco has gotten to the point where it's a little difficult to buy a place there right now, to say the least. So we started looking at alternative cities, and St. Paul came up. So we ended up buying a small place that we can stay out there, and it's a small apartment building, and we're planning on taking one of the apartments one of these days, when somebody moves. But then COVID happened, so that's all changed. Um, but yeah, we had a plumber come out, and plumbing's expensive. And
I've
it
heard
was
that.
yeah, so it was cheaper for me to fly out there and spend a couple days in a nice hotel and work on the place myself than it was to hire a plumber to diagnose what the problem seemed to be. And I was able to take care of a bunch of problems, everything from two garage doors, a mystery leak, drippy kitchen faucet, radiator issues. There were some other drainage issues and some railings. So yeah, it was kind of fun. I got to use a lot of my skills that I haven't used in a while, because I wasn't going to fly any of my guys out there with me. So yeah, it was all on me, but it was fun. It was beautiful out there, and we got a little snow out there too. It was chilly.
Oh,
Go figure. Yeah.
yeah.
St. Paul,
Midwest.
cold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In
Yeah,
November.
actually,
Yeah.
I was,
Late
I was,
October.
I was thinking how you're now entering into that season of it's kind of like touch and go of, but take COVID away. Don't even figure in that detail. Just weather-wise alone, you are entering into this like gambling time of year where can you fly in and fly out of the Midwest,
Yeah.
and the weather, and then I think from my experience of living there, it's really not the snow as much as it's the ice storms and the ice that
Yeah.
will cause problems. So
Yeah.
just be on alert. Hopefully you did some really great work that holds up.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I have to go back out there. Yeah, because we were out there last Thanksgiving. We spent Thanksgiving out there. Our son was still living there, and we flew in no problem. We flew in a couple days before Thanksgiving, but my brother-in-law and his daughter came out to visit as well, and it was one of those situations where it was a storm was coming in, and we were worried about him landing, but it got progressively worse and worse, and they did 2 or 3 trips around the airport to just decide whether or not they were going to land. They were the last plane to land in Minneapolis, and it was a Minneapolis cruise. We're pretty sure they just wanted to get home for Thanksgiving, and they were willing to risk the landing. Because, and also I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a retired pilot from Delta, and he's like, yeah, those Minneapolis crews are outstanding for flying in the snow. You were lucky it wasn't a crew from out of Miami or something. It's like, yeah, those guys, they know how to deal with the snow up there. So yeah, it was good.
Very,
Very last
stressful.
plane, and he actually texted my wife and sister, yeah, when he landed, just sweet Jesus. It was so
Right?
scary.
Right?
He said it was terrifying, but they made it for Thanksgiving, so it was good. But yeah, that's the joys of the Midwest. But yeah, so we are entering into this winter time, and we were talking about subjects that we could talk about for the show. And one of the key things right now is getting the house ready for this oncoming weather. I know I woke up here in Grass Valley the other day and it was in the 20s, so it's below freezing. So there's quite a few things that you can do to make sure that you don't have to call a plumber because your pipes are frozen. Because this is the time of year, people, and you just never know when, every like 3 to 5 years we get a hard freeze here, and we'll have a backup of calls where our guys are running just triage. I mean, we're just going out and doing the bare minimum, getting people water, fixing, trying to take care of the bleeding as quickly as we can and move on to the next. And we'll run 10 to 15 calls, which normally we only run about 2 to 4 calls a day. So just so we can get everybody going, and that'll take a couple days to get through it. So you don't want to be in that situation because it could take days before somebody can get out to your house. And so a couple things that you can do is, one of the main things is, if you have any exposed piping on the outside of your house, definitely insulate them. And you can get the insulation at any hardware store, B&C, Hills Flat, A to Z. You can get money at those places. You can also get them at plumbing supply houses. One thing I do recommend, though, is you don't get the thin walled insulation. You can get insulation that's only a 1/2 inch thick. That's not actually even code. We don't even use that stuff. We had to throw away a bunch of it recently because we can't even use it anymore. You want a minimum of 3/4. Ideally, you want 1 inch wall. That is going to save your bacon when it gets really cold. So spend a little bit of money, go out and buy it. It's really easy. You can cut it with a kitchen knife or with a pair of scissors. They all come with a little strip, a tacky strip that you just peel off a piece of plastic that keeps it from sticking together. You wrap it around the pipe, pull the plastic strip, it glues together. It's one of those DIY things that most anybody can do. It doesn't require any skill. So get out there and insulate those pipes. If you've got some insulation on the pipes now, check and make sure it's actually still there, because it does deteriorate with UV rays. So it can get pretty thin, and the cells will break. And the thing that keeps it insulated is those little air pockets in there, and they'll break down. So if it's 5 or 10 years old and it's been sitting outside without any tape or anything around it, just replace it. So that's one thing. The other thing is, this is something I found in St. Paul when I went out there. It had already gotten cold, and we had a outside hose bib or garden valve that was leaking. And I was thinking to myself, worst case scenario, gosh, I was gonna have to replumb it and all this stuff. But there was a valve underneath the house that I was able to just simply shut and turn that hose bib off. So ideally, most houses, most of the time, we will install valves for outside irrigation. So you can just isolate that entire system, turn it off, drain it down, and you're good to go for the season. That's the best thing to do, because even if, and that's the other thing too, is drain it out, because even if you turn it off, you'll still have water in there, and the water freezes, it's going to rupture the pipe. And why does it rupture the pipe? Well, when you freeze water, it expands and it literally cracks the walls of the pipe. I've seen it crack steel pipe. So yeah, definitely look into doing that. Those are the key things. So insulate the pipes, and if you can't shut down your irrigation and drain it. A couple other things that you can do. It's obvious thing right now is clear your gutters if you haven't already done that. I know I did that because of fire season. But now that we have fire season going into November, you want to make sure those gutters are cleared because of fire. But now that we're getting into the rainy season, take a look and make sure you got all your gutters cleared now, and get the downspouts. Make sure they're flowing, because that's something you don't really want to deal with in the rain. I usually end up having to deal with in the rain myself, because I usually wait too long. And those are a couple simple things. Make sure you check your furnace filter. If you haven't turned your furnace on right now, I'd be surprised. But at this point, because it's already gotten pretty cold, but hopefully everything's working on that. If you haven't had your furnace checked, you might want to think about that. Any HVAC company will come out and do a thorough inspection to make sure you don't have a cracked heat exchanger. It's one of those things. We just had a training for all our guys to reiterate the dangers of carbon monoxide poisoning. And I would talk about cracked heat exchangers. Inside of a furnace, there's a fire, and it's inside of a box. I'm trying to simplify it. So it's basically inside of a box, and then that box has a flue that goes to the outside of the house. We want to keep that burning, the air, the byproducts of combustion, separate from indoor of the house. So then the air comes in and goes around that box, and then continually circulates throughout the home. But as that fire burns inside that box, it's being vented out. So it's venting out carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and any other kind of trace elements that are in the fuel. We want to make sure that doesn't get inside the house. What happens though, as a furnace gets older, you've got a lot of thermal expansion and contraction as that thing heats up and cools. So they will literally crack or get holes in them, especially if it's installed incorrectly, which we've seen many times. Once there's a breach in that system, now all of a sudden you get the byproduct combustion inside your house, and you can have carbon monoxide inside your house. Carbon monoxide is odorless, tasteless, colorless. You can't even really tell it's there, except for the symptoms that you'll experience: nausea, headaches, fatigue, joint aches, things of that nature. And you might think, well, it's just a flu, but I only seem to feel bad when I'm inside the house. And it's probably a cracked heat exchanger or carbon monoxide coming from someplace. So I highly, highly recommend somebody coming out there. The other thing you want to make sure is make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector outside of every bedroom. It's just cheap insurance, and they're not terribly expensive. I mean, you can get them for like 30 to 50 bucks right now. You can get the combination ones, the smoke and carbon monoxide with a 10-year battery. I think they're about 50 bucks. It's so worth it. I mean, if you just Google carbon monoxide poison, you will find cases every year where people have passed away or people get sick. There was one last year where an actress, I can't remember, rented a house up in Tahoe or Truckee, and they all got severely ill from the carbon monoxide. That made national news. That's fortunately they managed to get the fire department out there, and they lived through it. But I've heard too many stories and read too many stories where people didn't have that luck, because unfortunately what happens is you go to bed, you're kind of not feeling well, and you just don't wake up. You get asphyxiated, you get carbon monoxide poisoning. So it's one of those things, and yeah, I don't mean to beleaguer this and go on and on about it, but it's one of those things that just scares me, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen it. I can't tell you how many times I've told people that they have carbon monoxide at their house and they're not willing to do anything about it. It hurts me, because it's one of those things that it's just so easily avoidable, just with some simple carbon monoxide detectors and having somebody check your furnace to make sure that you don't have any cracked heat exchanger, and make sure the water heater is installed correctly. All those things. Yeah. Anything, you got anything on that? Because I know.
Well, I just was.
I've talked a lot here, so.
No. I mean, I think since we now introduced video into our mix, it's easier for me to wait until you finish, because now it's just less likely to go back and forth. We're still trying to get the video thing figured out. It's only 2020.
Yeah.
The year, not the show. But no, I mean, I just was kind of thinking to myself the other day, I think, we were playing a game at my house of who's going to be the first one to turn the heater on, because, where I live, because it's by the beach and it's Southern California, people have this idea, and even some people that live here, some people that live with me, think that, oh, it's supposed to be warm all the time. Well, it's not. and,
Yeah.
and so we were kind of putting off like turning on the heater, because that first heater use of the year, where all that, like the smell and like
The
burn off
dust
of
and
the dust and all that,
yeah.
it's so gross. But it's just so gross. But yeah, we finally, I mean, I think I was the one who caved, because it just got cold enough. But
Yeah.
it is interesting to be concerned about those things right now, because I'm also experiencing sinus issues. So I get
Yeah.
the thing in my head, and I think, oh my God, is that carbon monoxide? And then I realize, like,
Yeah.
no, I just have other issues. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, at this point in the game, we just got to keep you all healthy, get you across finish line to New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Let's
get through 2020. Yeah.
yeah, let's keep you happy and healthy, and have some, some cool Thanksgiving feast in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And just do those little things you can before the snow hits, and make it a little
Yeah.
easier on yourself. Winter comes every year, but we always seem to be distracted, and here it is. So let's get on those things if we
Yeah.
haven't done it already.
Yeah. So I hope this helps you all to kind of help get your house ready for this cold weather, because it's here. And on that fine note, we got a show. So thanks for listening. And if you need to reach us, we're at 530-272-9120, 530-272-9120. You can find us on the web at easyasabt.com. You can find us on Facebook. Please like our page. We just got some fun stuff and some good topics like this. And you can also find us at You Got This. And now you can find us on YouTube. So you can actually see our mugs.
How exciting. How exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week. Bye.